Hello, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. I am Ron Luce. I am currently recording this around 1:30 this afternoon. You guys will all be joining me later this evening, probably right around 7 o'clock, as when this will air over on the On Tap Sportsnet YouTube. So I welcome you in. Leave your comments. This is going to be an episode that I'm going to go back. I'm going to check some of the comments, leave some good questions, because, we're going to dive into a little bit before we get into everything Cubs baseball here, upcoming Cubs on Tap shows. So the title of this episode is the Penultimate Swan Song. And what that means for anybody that doesn't know what penultimate means, it means the second to last. So this is the second to last show of the regular season for us. We've pretty much already confirmed the scheduling for the final show. It will be Tuesday of next week. So that'll be Tuesday, October 1st, that will be coming to you live. Myself, Juice on Tap, Teddy Freddy 270, Mr. Tyler Edmonds, and Nick Hudson, we will all be on the air. Joey is preparing for a very big and special day of his own on Friday of next week, so he will not be joining us. But Joey will always gets a shout out, and we're going to ask him for some of his thoughts that we'll also share on the show as well. So do be sure to tune in with us for that show. We are aiming for about the 8 o'clock hour. There will be an official announcement from the Cubs on Tap social media page. Be sure to join us in the comment section, but leave us some questions. Leave us some things here on this show. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on X, same applies. And if you're listening to this on podcast, as always, we appreciate the hell out of you and what you guys bring to our shows on a day-to-day basis. But that is what's on deck for the Cubs on Tap crew. After that final show, we might have one more show depending on how the Jed Hoyer press conference goes. That might just be a two-man panel, and then we will sail off into the sunset probably for the month of October and connect with you guys then sometime around November is when we will be back, as a number of our guys are just in need of some time off, and some of us other ones, myself, Juice, we have other teams that we are moving into coverage for here for the fall season. So Cubs on Tap, though, during the off season, we'll be coming to you guys live pretty regularly, at least once a week, assuming things are happening and we have things to talk about in the universe of Cubs baseball. But the last time we talked to you, there's been 2 series that have been played. So we'll go over those series results here in just a hot second. The Cubs were able to take care of business against the Washington Nationals. Those games, they won 3 out of 4 in that series. They dropped. It was Saturday's game to the Nats, but won Thursday 7-6, won Friday 3-1, and then won 5-0 on Sunday in Shota's second to last start of the season. He will start, I believe, the season finale on Sunday is how it currently plays out in the rotation for him. And then obviously against the Phillies, the Cubs dropped 2 of 3. They lose 2-6 on Monday, 10-4 win on Tuesday, but a 6-9 loss nice on Wednesday before we're coming to you here on Thursday. And, it was a real bummer because at the end of the day, right, we know what the series results were. We know what's happened. There was a couple of okay pitching performances, a couple of bad ones. Assad got lit up a little bit. Things of that nature. A Caleb Killian sighting after a long season back for him. Unfortunately, he got lit up a little bit in this Phillies series. But at the end of the day, we learned it's over. And that's exactly what we're going to kind of discuss here now and what most of the show is going to be. It's over. The Cubs were officially eliminated from playoff contention during that National series. I believe it was actually the loss to the Nationals that fully took them out of it when it was all said and done. It would have inevitably been over probably within the next 2 days after, had it not happened on Saturday. But again, the Cubs lose. So at this point, there is nothing to play for besides pride, really, at the end of the day. A 3-game set on the horizon against the Cincinnati Reds. We'll talk about that at the end of the show, as we always do. And I think now that we can officially say it's over, I'm not going to spoil all of my thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts on the season. I'm probably going to come up with even more between now and the next time we record on Tuesday. But right now, the way things stand, it's disappointing. It really is. I think everybody was mentally prepared for Cubs baseball in October. I think everybody was mentally prepared for September to be exciting. And, for a small part of it, it was. I think a lot of people after that National Series, when they opened September, thought, hey, maybe they have a chance. But then losing 2 of 3 to the Athletics losing 2 of 3 to the Rockies was really kind of where I think a lot of people officially said, okay, we're done. We give up. We know this isn't going to happen. We know the season's not going to go the way we want it to. And it's rough. It's really rough. And there's so many things you can point to, right? You can obviously point to health being a big one. No Cody Bellinger for a decent part of the season. Obviously Justin Steele misses a month of the year and then misses additional time at the end of the season. Your bullpen was a health nightmare. I mean, Adbert Alzolay, Neris didn't perform. I mean, he was ultimately DFA'd. There's so many things that just went wrong. The Cubs needed this team to play at their absolute top potential to be a real contender, right? They needed a Dansby Swanson to have that like 740 OPS season that he had in his final year with the Braves. They needed a Nico Horner to provide, 15 home runs and steal probably another 40 bases like he did last year. He didn't do that. They needed a guy like Cody Bellinger to perform anywhere close to what he did a season ago. He was an 881 OPS player. This year, just 755, a huge regression from what he was a prior season. You got good performance out of guys like Michael Busch. Seiya Suzuki largely had about the same season that he did last year when it's all said and done. But most of these bats were not enough to carry the team. And obviously, Christopher Morel's departure was a huge storyline from this year. Bringing in Isaac Paredes to play third base every day for what should be the foreseeable future now as well. There's a lot of players on this team that can improve on their performances from this year in the upcoming season. And I think that's going to be a huge piece of them being potentially successful in 2025. But I think then there's also going to be an influx of some young talent. And we're going to get to one of those names that has already debuted now after this Philly series. They're also going to need to go get at least another piece or two, maybe even 3. I think to really truly be a competitor in not only the NL Central, just the NL in general. Because you look at it, you probably need at least one more legit power bat, like true thumper in the lineup. Maybe even you can get 2 of those guys, but it probably means somebody's on their way out. I mean, Ian Happ's leading the team in long balls this year, so. He's turned into a little bit of a power hitter by his standards with a 25 homer season. I think when it's all said and done, somebody's going to get moved this offseason that people don't want to get moved. My gut tells me it's a Nico Horner type player because you might have a guy like Matt Shaw who is potentially waiting in the wings that can come up and play second base. But at the end of the day, right, upgrade a catcher, I think, to supplement Miguel Amaya. I think keeping Christian Bethancourt around would be great from an organizational depth standpoint because we know injuries to catchers happen all the time. Happened to Thomas Nido this year after they acquired him. And there's a lot of belief that they're probably going to go get another starting pitcher. And I think that's a good move. We saw this year, right? Everybody's, well, what about Ben Brown or what about Cade Horton? Well, these guys got hurt. That's another year of lost development for every single one of these guys. And when it's all said and done, they need to develop properly. You don't want to just thrust guys in and watch them fail or not be ready. We don't want another Mark Pryor situation or Kerry Wood where these guys get hurt too much because they're not properly ready for major league starting pitching duty. And then you wonder what if, and I don't think any Cubs fan wants to go through the what if game with some of these names. You know what you have in Justin Steele. You know what you have in Shota Imanaga. You know what you have in a Jameson Taillon for another 2 seasons. You go get a Corbin Burns, who's been already kind of the hot name attached to the Cubs. Then that 5th spot's probably Javier Assans, unless somebody else really takes it from him. And then you have a ton of that depth. You have the Ben Browns. You have the Hayden Westneskis. You have the Jordan Wickses of the world, who are either going to be great depth for you in the future or potentially depth that you can move to improve at other positions. And again, I don't want to dive too deep into the offseason stuff. I'm just going to hit you with a tease there because we're going to have a ton to talk about this offseason. This Cubs on Tap shows are going to be loaded with what ifs, hypotheticals, tinfoil hat takes, rabbit holes. We're going to go through it all because there's a lot to be done for this Cubs team. And I think that at the end of the day, you figure they're 81 and 78, I think is what their record currently stands. And I'll do my own quick confirmation here on that. Yes, 81 and 78. So if they win 2 of 3, they finish with the exact same record they did a year ago. If they lose 2 of 3, they finish 2 games worse. Or sorry, a game worse. They would be 82 and 80. So you're looking at another 500 ball club from last year to this year. And I think Jed was expecting a lot of these guys to take that step forward, and they just simply didn't. And I expect there to be guys that next season do kind of take that next step forward. I think PCA and what we saw from him in the second half is super encouraging going into next year. I think a guy like Miguel Amaya is the exact same way. So there's going to be guys that do improve upon what they had next season. But there's also going to be guys that are probably going to stay the same or maybe even potentially regress. And I think that's where Jed needs to be creative this offseason. And again, that creativity is hopefully going to generate a lot for us to talk about. And, just kind of what the direction is of the Chicago Cubs, because if they're just going to continue to be a middling team, I think a lot of people are really going to start to get frustrated with the fan base or the ownership, the front office, even more so than they already are. And we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But it's over. It's over. The Cubs are for sure not a playoff team. We get to watch playoff baseball from the couch, not involving the Chicago Cubs, which I think personally for me as a fan is when you don't have a dog in the race, it's kind of just easy to sit back and watch things happen. And just kind of take in what the postseason is. And right now, there's a lot of postseason races that are still happening. And I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit here in our rundown before we go back to a couple of our other topics. Playoff update for MLB sickos. And what I mean by an MLB sicko, you just love the sport of baseball. That doesn't make you an actual sicko. It's fun to call people MLB sickos, especially during the football and hockey seasons that are coming up. I know for me, that takes over a lot of my interest in the pennant chase, especially when the Cubs are not involved. But I mean, right now you're looking at the playoff race. It's coming down to just a handful of teams here. It's pretty much the Mets, the Braves, and the Diamondbacks that are competing. The Braves are 1 game out of the final wild card spot. Diamondbacks are holding on for dear life, and the Mets are also holding on for dear life. Padres are 3.5 clear, so they are in. They could lose out. It doesn't matter. They're in the playoffs no matter what. And the Dodgers also in the playoffs, even though the Padres can technically still catch them. But we're probably going to expect the Dodgers to win the West, and the Phillies and Brewers, as we already know, have racked up their respective divisions in the East and Central, respectively. On the other side, I think the wild card race is even more fascinating on the AL side, personally, because it's not 3 teams for 2 spots; it's 4 teams for 2 spots. And I think that makes it even more fun. The Orioles have racked up a playoff spot already. They could, in theory, catch the Yankees. They probably won't. So the Yankees are probably going to win the AL East, but the Orioles will be in the wild card in the playoffs. The Astros and the Guardians have already wrapped up their divisions respectively. So they are sitting pretty right now as AL leaders. But the Kansas City Royals and the Detroit Tigers are tied for the final spot in the wild card. Talk about a meteoric rise for these Detroit Tigers. They have played a hell of a month of baseball, find themselves in a playoff position. They're 10 games above 500, 8-2 in their last 10. They won their last 4. They're currently playing, while I'm recording this, against the Tampa Bay Rays. I almost called them the Devil Rays. Been playing a lot of MLB 2K, old 2K games recently. So the Devil Rays are still on my mind. But you've got the Kansas City Royals, who are just 3-7 in their last 10. And you got the Twins, who are 2 games out, and the Mariners, who are 2.5 out. It's going to be really fun this weekend to kind of watch that AL wild card from afar and just see who kind of ends up squeaking in. I think the Mariners in a world can certainly do it, because you have this great pitching staff at hand for 3 games this weekend, and they've got the athletics. I mean, and they're at home against the A's, so you're in your own ballpark as well to finish out the year. Detroit is the same way. They welcome the White Sox to town for the final series. The Sox are playing today, going for history with their 121st loss. When you're listening and watching this, they might be at that point where they've lost their 121st game. And then you've got the Twins, who could make it. They got the Marlins coming up here. I mean, it's going to be a really fun wild card race to watch, but I kind of hope the Tigers make the playoffs. I really do. I think it'd be really cool to see that team make the playoffs. They're young, they're fun. It's fun watching AJ Hinch be successful because he should have been the White Sox manager and he wasn't. But yeah, the AL race is far more fascinating than the NL race. Really, the NL race is it's the Mets, the Diamondbacks, and the Braves. And Braves have won 3 in a row, so they're certainly in a position. They play the Royals this coming weekend. The Mets play the Brewers, which the Brewers really don't have anything to play for, so they might kind of roll over and die. And same goes for the Diamondbacks. But I think the Padres want to win that division, so I could see a world where they really try to go for it, and the Padres wrap up their series with the Dodgers today as we speak. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But that's the playoff update for you MLB sickos. Obviously, playoff baseball starts next week. So, we'll be talking probably a little bit about some of the playoff series and how things shook out at the end of the year as a part of our wrap-up show. Our final Swan song of the season before we fully pivot our brains into MLB offseason mode. And, talking a little bit about the Cubs convention. Obviously, I think the whole group is excited to do that again. I know I am personally as well very excited to be back at CubsCon. And this year, they're going to have a lot of pressure this year now, because now it's okay. You promised us playoffs last year and it didn't happen. What did you do prior to CubsCon to really get the fan base fired up? And that's going to be something to watch. Final piece. This is a really short show. I know, I'm sure a lot of people are like, hey, we want more. Can we do that? Yeah, of course. Absolutely. So, we'll have more content. That final show is going to make up for the lack of length in this one, I promise, with 4 of the 5 co-hosts here being on the show together. So that'll be a good one to tune into. But let's talk a little bit about it. El Jaguar arrives. So the Jaguar, Kevin Alcantara, was recalled before the game on Wednesday against the Phillies. He did debut, played right field. He got his first career major league hit. I believe he went 1 for 4 when it was all said and done at the end of the night. Showed off that speed, beating out that infield single. He's a guy that I think now people have to legitimately start considering as a part of the future. Like, this is part of the fascination now for the upcoming offseason. And I would applaud if you are looking for an excuse to watch Cubs baseball this weekend, do it to watch Kevin Alcantara, because he's probably going to play this coming weekend in every single one of these games. He might not get a start in every single one of them, but I can guarantee you he's going to at least appear probably in every single one of them. Now is the time where these young guys are going to start to factor into the front office decisions and who comes up and maybe who's moved and who, they try to free spots up for, and who potentially of these prospects could move for a bigger piece, a Vlad Guerrero type piece. Obviously, that's not necessarily going to be the case, but that type of player where you might have to go trade for that guy who's not readily available on the free agent market. I think Kevin Alcantara is the most fascinating name, and here's why. Juice had a firsthand look at this guy when he was in A-ball at High A South Bend, where Juice was at probably 2 to 3 games a week with it being his backyard, sometimes even more. He said he is probably one of the most just in raw talent, maybe the one true 5-tool player the Cubs might have in their system. And he's still super young, only 22 years old. He is a baby by baseball standards. He's going to be really fascinating to watch just over these last couple games and in next year, because sure, maybe he doesn't crack the team right out of the gate, but if he's in Iowa and he's doing anything close to what he did over the last 35 games when he was down in Iowa, an 847 OPS player, he's going to be in the big leagues. They're going to find a space for him. And then it becomes, who's gone, who gets moved. So I really, really exciting. I think this is just the signal now that the front office is trying to figure the fuck out what they have. Plain and simple. I think that's truly what it is. They are truly trying to figure out, hey, what do we have in Kevin Alcantara? What do we have in James Triantos? What do we have in Moises Ballesteros and Owen Casey? What do we have in these guys? Because if we, and this being the proverbial we, if we, the Chicago Cubs front office, think that these guys are a part of the future, you got to start ushering them in at least a little bit. If they're not, try to trade them. Try to make them a part of a package to get better on the field. And I think that's what we're going to continue to see with the Cubs. Obviously, I think Kevin Alcantara was the easiest one to call up because he's already on the 40-man, and he's the only one on the 40-man. So giving him a cup of coffee certainly made a lot of sense. I'm happy to see him. I think he wears a great number too, by the way. I think 13 is an awesome number. I know Bodie most recently wore it, but I think of Starlin Castro when I hear the number 13. Very, very cool to see him come up. I think it's a huge step in his development just to get the first call to the major leagues. And I hope he has a good series at Wrigley this weekend. I really do. I hope he gets to play a ton and, maybe he gets his first career homer or something cool like that. Because, there's still going to be a good amount of people at the ballpark taking in one last weekend of baseball at Wrigley before the weather gets cold and we're all wishing that we're, at a 120 start in the middle of June at Wrigley. And we're all going to have that feeling at some point in October and November, probably certainly December through March, and then even in April, people are going to be like, oh, I like coming to the Cubs games, but I'm dreaming of those days in late May and early June. And I tend to agree. So good to see Kevin Alcantara arrive officially at the major league level. Again, he gets a start in Philadelphia. I hope he gets 3 starts coming up this weekend against the Reds. Let him play. Let him play as much as possible. You got nothing to lose. Let's see what happens with the kid. Maybe you go 81 and 81. That'd be really comical and would give Cubs fans a lot of ammunition at CubsCon if things don't change for them to be a better team. We've addressed the upcoming Cubs on Tap shows, but again, reminding you, we will have our season wrap-up show next week. We are aiming for Tuesday. It'll probably be around the 8 o'clock Central Time hour, so do join us live here on the On Tap Sportsnet YouTube channel. As always, like, subscribe, hit the bell button. You'll know when we go live. You know when all of our other great shows go live, like our friends over at the Dingers podcast, like all of our shows like Bears on Tap, as well as Four Feathers, who we're really starting to get into the rhythm and the rhyme of the season as the Blackhawks kicked off things with their first preseason game on Wednesday night. And the Bulls season is going to be here before you know it as well. So be on the lookout for all the great Bulls content in addition. Let's talk really quick about the upcoming series, and then we'll wrap this thing up. What's on tap? It's the Cincinnati Reds. One final season series against a NL Central opponent. The Reds are coming to Wrigley. It is Fan Appreciation Weekend. I would commend everybody, if you're in the area and you can get to a game this weekend, go. We took in our final game at Wrigley against the Oakland Athletics in that series. I could have potentially had an opportunity to go this weekend. It might not work out, and I'm a little bummed. So I don't want you to feel that way either. Get out to the ballpark if you can. A couple 120 starts. The weather's going to be freaking gorgeous. I hope the rain stays away largely. I know we're supposed to get some rain over the course of the weekend. Hopefully it's rain-free baseball at Wrigley, and hopefully people can take in enjoying Kevin Alcantara, a final Shota Imanaga start, hopefully. There's plenty still to look forward to in this upcoming series against the Reds. And honestly, just let the kids play. Let the young guys play. See what happens. Just play for next season. Nobody gets hurt. Let all the arms burn themselves out. You got 3 games left. You're not playing in the playoffs. Now is the time to let the Ethan Roberts throw extra innings, the Nate Pearsons and those kind of guys. Let Caleb Killian trot back out there again if you think he can throw on maybe Sunday for an inning or 2 after Shota Imanaga goes. I think there's plenty of opportunity for guys to get work, and it doesn't matter if they win the series or not. It's all said and done. It's going to be some of these underlying storylines, right? How does Kevin Alcantara do against the Reds over 3 games? What do some of these other guys do for these next 3 games? We've seen a hot bat from guys like Dansby Swanson and Nico Horner over the last week or so. Do we continue to see that? Can they carry that in the next season? A lot of questions, but that's what the series is about. Just the final storylines of the year to hopefully give fans something to think about over the course of the offseason. Give us things here at Cubs on Tap to talk about on the microphones as we get ready to rock into the winter and the GM meetings and the winter meetings and all that good shit, which is right around the corner. As always, everybody, I want to remind you, Cubs on Tap, 1 and 2 official shows here covering your Chicago Cubs. Check out our friends over at the Dingers podcast every Monday or Tuesday. They are live right here on the On Tap Sportsnet YouTube channel. Like I said a little bit earlier, subscribe, hit the bell button. You'll know when they go live. You'll know when we go live. And all of our other great shows here at On Tap Sportsnet. They are at Dinger Cubs on the socials. We are at Cubbies on Tap on the socials. I am at Loose on Tap. Follow all of my other great contributors and co-hosts as well at Juice on Tap, Teddy Freddy 270, Joey Knows Nothing, Nick _ on Tap, and of course at Silent Bob _2. That's our boy Bobby Foster. Be sure to give him some love and support as well. As always, not just Cubs baseball we got covered here. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks. I already noted all the shows that are in full swing. Bears on Tap. We've been doing a lot of fun coverage, a lot of O-line breakdowns as well. If you're into the learning more about the sport of football and the intricacies of blocking schemes and things like that, check out the latest from Q and I over on the On Tap Sportsnet YouTube. In addition, be sure to check out all of our other shows. Four Feathers Podcast is up and running. We'll have a show next week, pretty much doing our season preview and what we're expecting for the upcoming season. In addition to that, the Bulls guys will be starting to hopefully ramp things up here in the not so distant future as well, as Bulls season is right around the corner. And as always, Cubs fans, your friends that like the Southsiders are just as miserable as ours. They're going for 121 losses. It might have happened already, as a matter of fact. At the time of this recording, I'm actually going to take a quick look myself, because they can all get together and talk about how terrible this team was this year. It's nothing at the end of the third. So we'll be all surprised together. But they're about to make history in the wrong ways. But you send your friends over to our friends over at Sox on Tap. They do a great job covering the second franchise here in the city, in the sport of baseball. Nonetheless, ontapsportsnet.com, at ontapsportsnet on the socials. The On Tap Sports Network. Go and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. The penultimate Swan song, ladies and gentlemen. We got one more wrap-up show for you, for sure, guaranteed. We might have another after Jed Hoyer's end-of-season press conference, depending on when that is. I hope it's Tuesday, because then we can talk about it all in one show. And then that will sail us over to pretty much November, as October will be a nice break period for the Cubs on Tap crew. It was a long season. I think a lot of the guys can agree, a lot of life-changing events for the group as well. A lot of guys going through moves, myself included. I've moved twice in the calendar year. Other events. I'll give a big shout out and congratulations if you're going to the ballpark this weekend, especially Saturday, but I think or Friday, excuse me. But Saturday as well, Mr. Joey Ricotta will be out at the ballpark for his bachelor party, because he gets married on October 4th. So congratulations to Joey. I get married next year after the baseball season myself. Juice, what has gone through a lot of life change. He's back now. He's not in South Bend anymore. He's out in the Chicagoland area as well. So we're looking forward to hopefully next season doing a lot more with Juice in person at the ballpark. It was a crazy, chaotic year for the Cubs on Tap crew, and it almost feels apropos that it was the same way on the field as well. But we're expecting 2025 to be a lot better, and I hope that's the case with both this team as well as our coverage that comes to you guys. Hopefully, we're a little more consistent, and everybody's lives are a little more settled down than they have been over the last 12 calendar months. So, but we appreciate the hell out of every single one of you. Every single one of you that listens to this show, watches this show live with us, comments along with us. You guys make this thing go as well. And we really appreciate the love, the support, and just the interaction of other Cubs fans who care about the same team that we do in the great sport of baseball. So thank you to every single one of you guys for tuning in with us. Again, we have one more for sure confirmed show pretty much to wrap up the season here. That'll be next week on Tuesday. We will provide more details closer to that day, probably on Mondays, when you'll hear the details from us in terms of time and official panelists. Again, it's looking like it will be everybody but Joey, because of Joey's in wedding prep week. So we're very excited for Joey, and most of us will be at the wedding with Joey as he gets married, and it's all exciting and fun. So we're very excited about that as well here from Cubs on Tap. But as always, I am Ron Luce, and I'm going to get out of here the only way now. FTC, FTB.